You've been considered a real-life wizard.
When I was 4, I tried to tell my mom, like, I'm different. I'm not from here, and she was like, no.
What do you mean not from here?
I didn't really feel like I was from Earth. I felt like I was from a different place. I would go to the bathroom and, burn out a light bulb with my energy, and I could read people's thoughts, and people around me, they didn't seem to be able to do that.
But no one believed in him, so he shut it down, and years later opened it back up and discovered something worth sharing. Please welcome to the show, Daniel Raphael.
I stopped feeling love. I became suicidal, depressed, social anxiety, autistic. It just felt like I was in a video game and nothing was real. I couldn't even really move my face, make eye contact, and I just became a zombie. I can list 1,000 things of how I could be a victim, and I had to really go through each one and really take the lesson from it and shift that perspective.
Why do people be victims?
We aren't taught how to be resilient in school. We aren't taught how to deal with our emotions. And so we're being bombarded by all this fake stuff. It's weakening us. And then we're told that you got to do this and this and focus on the outside world. It's by design to make you a robot. It's designed to teach you the opposite information and take you away from natural foods and the earth and God. The system that, corporations make way more money and power by keeping people sick. At 15, I had my wisdom teeth taken out, and within a few months, I became narcoleptic almost. I would fall asleep driving cars, just brain fog, depression, and I'm like, what's going on here? And recently, I took a scan, and they found that
You've been, from a very young age, considered a real-life wizard. What does that mean?
Well, I think we all are wizards, and we've just been gaslighted into not believing in our own abilities that God gave us in this biology and in our soul. But, when I was 4, I was already moving stuff with my mind. I was telepathic, so I could read, what my mom was about to say on her phone call with a friend and say it out loud before she would say it. I could feel people and see their insecurities. That's why, in preschool and kindergarten, every day I would start the day by sharing a compliment to my teachers because I could feel their deepest insecurity, like their voice. My kindergarten teacher didn't like her voice, insecure of speaking. So I was like, oh, your voice is sweet like honey. And I would try to just help people. And that's how I was just born that way. And yeah.
So you're saying in kindergarten, you would be able to see how people were feeling and their insecurities?
I could see it. I could feel it. I could know it. And yeah, I just got a lot of data instantly when I would just meet someone or see someone.
So do you feel like you said we all are like this deep down?
100%.
Why so?
Well, thousands of years ago, we all lived that way. We lived in communities where we were all telepathic. And, one of my teachers actually lived, today in Africa, there's tribes where children don't really cry. He lived with the community for months and finally heard a small child cry because he had malaria. And then he realized, oh, wow, I haven't heard a cry in months, because before a child is hungry or has an emotional issue, someone in the community can feel them with their own nervous system, or they can feel if someone sees a snake in the jungle and they'll go out and help them. And so it's something that we've built into ourselves that we've just disconnected from.
What, so we aren't supposed to cry?
It's not that we're not supposed to cry, but that I think children cry so much because they're not being felt by their parents or their community. And so we've been disconnected from really being able to connect deeply with each other. And so that's why much of the emotional issues that we have today, which some tribes don't even understand, they think it's insanity because they don't experience that.
What do you think some of the main things that are getting in the way are?
Physically, it's toxins, Wi-Fi. We're being bombarded by all this propaganda and distorted television shows and content. And we're missing the information of how to connect with each other. So there's multiple generations where we just are being taught the opposite of what's true. And that's creating all sorts of kinks in the neural network that we're meant to have together as a community.
Were you discovering this from quite a young age? Did you feel like something was wrong from a very young age?
When I was 4, I would try to tell my mom, like, I'm different. I'm not from here, and she was like, no.
What do you mean not from here?
I didn't really feel like I was from Earth. I felt like I was from a different place. And I was trying to explain because I would go to the bathroom and burn out a light bulb with my energy. And I could read people's thoughts, and other people around me, they didn't seem to be able to do that. And so I felt like I was different. And then going back, I realized, no, I was just, born this way, and most people around me already had shut it down.
What do you mean it already had shut it down?
When when we're born, like children, they're innocent, and I feel like we can get so much information. We can say something, but if we're feeling differently, the child will be able to know, right? They'll be able to actually see, like, oh, you're not being authentic, and we start second guessing ourselves because our parents punish us if we say something that's the truth or if they're hiding it, right? And most people are just not being authentic and hiding things, and then the children learn to do that as well and disconnect from themselves, disconnect from others, and we form all these complexes that separate us from the truth.
How do we know what the truth is, though?
I believe, as we clear our instrument, we're like a musical instrument, and when we have a clean body and a clean mind, and we're not having all these distorted programs and stories, and also clear a lot of our traumas, that we are antennas to the true information, and we can instantly tap into all sorts of information. So it's really just kind of cleaning our instrument back to how we were designed to begin with.
So you said that you knew this from quite a young age, and you kind of hid a lot of it because you didn't want to feel left out, feel isolated. You just didn't think people would get it. You didn't want to offend people. So you kind of refrained from expressing your true self. Is that what you did growing up?
Yeah, it just happened more and more. My parents were going through a divorce and they did their best, but there was just a lot of things being withheld. And essentially, I just started shutting down more and more and more until I forgot what even love was. I stopped feeling love. I became suicidal, depressed, social anxiety, dissociated, autistic, all sorts of things where I literally just felt like I was in a video game and nothing was real. I couldn't even really move my face, make eye contact, say anything that was actually true myself, and I just became a zombie.
What led you to that of feeling nothing and feeling like a zombie?
I believe it was a combination of just toxins that I was given, medically and in the food, a lot of abuse, being, put in school and forced to, sit and learn things that much of it was either false or not actually true and relevant to a thriving real education that we can give our children. And so over and over again, I felt like I was just tortured inside, and I kept creating more and more armor. And that's what we all do in our own way, right? We just build more and more armor to kind of protect us from life. But then now life can't really get in.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the order of your parents were going through a divorce, then you started feeling depressed, suicidal, and things of that nature. Did the divorce play a big role in the way you were feeling? Was it challenging
100%.
for yourself?
Yeah. I started really disconnecting from feeling safe, feeling like I could be myself, and there's fighting going on all the time. Then lawyers got involved. It was like a 5-6 year divorce at least, and different family members. So it was kind of like a war at home. And then I just started disconnecting from all my family because I started not trusting any of them. And so I stopped having a single person that I could actually say, hey, here's what I'm feeling. Can you help me? And then so I just kind of gave up. I'm like, there's no need to be authentic. There's no need to share anything. And I would just dissociate, meaning I would just leave my body and go somewhere else. And I think that also reconnected me with some superpowers, because now that brings about a lot of abilities I have, but also it's been a journey to actually get back in my body and learn how to be human, because I didn't really live a childhood.
So when you said you would go somewhere else, where would you go?
I would sometimes go to different dimensions. It seemed like, I would see different beings. A lot of times I would kind of go into fantasy, like I would just be in an imaginary world because I hated the one I was in. So it was just anywhere that would just be different. I would start thinking about things and invent different, structures and things in my mind. So I would just kind of be out there. Yeah.
I'm so intrigued. I wonder where and how it gets to this, because at the very start you said we're all like this deep down, which is an interesting
well
thing.
we're all connected. I think a lot of us are in our bodies, but I was an extreme case of having it in a strong way growing up, and then also shutting down so extremely.
Like you mentioned a lot of different things, like being telepathic, being able to feel how people are feeling and know their insecurities, know what they're going through, even if you're not even with them. It's like I struggle to understand how that works and how you can actually feel that, experience that.
You ever gone to a room and you just feel like there's a person or energy that's off? And sometimes you just contract, So I think everyone has that to different degrees. And not everyone's the same. Obviously, we have many different psychic, intuitive faculties. Some people get vision. Some people just know things. Most of us can feel things. But I believe we all have it to certain degrees. And you can also develop it, just like going to the gym. But essentially, there's so many times also you're thinking about someone and they call, and we just be like, oh, that's a coincidence. But what's actually happening is you're radio, and we're getting signals all the time. And most people just lost the sensitivity or try to shut it down because they're overwhelmed with that sensitivity and they don't know how to handle it. So you've either told yourself it's not real, and then you keep blocking the evidence that you're getting actual information, or you just try to shut it down because you're overwhelmed. And the number one reason people do that is because as empaths, you try to people please, and you have to do that to survive as a kid, right? And so it gets draining and overwhelming to try to scan and make everyone happy and pick up their emotions. And then we just want to shut that down.
So I guess getting back into your body is important. Do you think there's a lot of things that are distracting us in our life, and it kind of masks us to not be able to feel these things?
100%. And that's the journey I'm still on today, is just learning how to really feel my body and stay in it, because my whole life was totally out of my body.
Yeah, you mentioned that your whole upbringing, you were trying to be normal. What does that mean, and what do you mean by that?
Well, I feel like I came in with a completely different operating system. And so I was autistic, I was out of my body. So I was super nerdy, and I was like trying to play sports and wasn't that good at it, and didn't really know how to connect with the kids in school. So I was like, maybe if I'm just really funny, or maybe, like, how do I make my face? They're making this face. What does that mean? Like, I didn't even understand facial recognition really. So I tried to change how I looked, and I tried to like speak how other people, which I think all kids do to some degree, most of them, in the society today at least. And I was trying to just radically change who I was to try to have someone love me, because underneath it, I believe that no one actually loved me, and I was unlovable.
Why did you feel like you were unlovable?
Because I couldn't feel acceptance, and especially for the unique parts of myself from the people around me. And so I couldn't feel that from really anyone, even though they really tried. Looking back, my parents and everyone did love me super deeply and do, but we just couldn't really communicate, and I couldn't feel safe to really be myself. And so I created this complex that I was unlovable.
So did you go on a journey to seek acceptance?
At first, yeah, I tried to just radically change how I looked and spoke. And then finally, like senior year of high school, it failed. Obviously, I just kind of became crazy. And that was my first deep depression, where then I was put on meds, which only made things worse. And that was a decline of a few years, where I went just completely into psychosis and all sorts of things, because I was just, everything that I was trying to build was built on sand, and it kind of fell because it wasn't who I was.
So let's go to that moment then, when you kind of went in that first depression, real depression, went on medication. What did that phase of your life look like? And can you share a bit of how you were back then and what you were going through?
I was just, at one point, just completely fake. I was trying to I got to get a fake tan or straighten my hair to wear cool clothes like the cool guys, and say these cool things. So it was literally just my brain. It was like a video game where it's like, press this button, maybe this button will work. And 0%, what do I actually want? What do I actually feel? So I just completely abandoned myself and became basically a robot.
Do you think a lot of people do that?
100%.
Why?
Because the system is designed to make you a robot. It's by design. It's designed to teach you the opposite information and take you away from natural foods and the earth and God in whatever way you want to call it, right? And to create such a level of shame and guilt, and even, religion, that, they go into you're a sinner. And I believe that's the opposite of God. And God doesn't see through the eyes of judgment and these lower emotions. And it creates such a complex of like, oh, I feel so much guilt and shame and fear that I'm just going to completely change who I am and, go off of dopamine and all of these things to try to feel better.
When you say system, what do you mean?
Well, there's been a sort of invisible, or, very visible once you learn how to see, forces that you can see it throughout history of war and pillaging and just horrible cult of death that has been terrorizing humanity for many centuries. And it's been more overt where like, oh, there's this dictator, this king, this emperor, right, that's just enslaving everyone, to now it's like, oh, we can vote, but there's so many invisible, silent things that are actually taking us away or trying to all the time from who we really are.
So are the people that are controlling this so-called system, are they public or are they very hidden people?
No, it's all very hidden. Yeah.
It's interesting because the thing that I question is like why? And have you kind of explored these questions and spoke with people to understand why it is the way it is?
Yeah, and there's different levels to it. It's absolutely, it sounds insane, and that's why it's very hard for people to actually believe, especially if they're new to it. Like, why would people do that? It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't, because it's insanity. Yet, from my research and what I personally believe on a deeper level is that God created this earth. It's like a school, and we basically reincarnate to learn different lessons, have different lifetimes, and God created, the dark side as a way to initiate you and forge you. Because without darkness, if there was just all positivity, you wouldn't really have free will. There wouldn't be risks. There wouldn't be all these lessons. So it's a force that's playing out on this planet. And, we go to a point after this planet where we transcend this realm. But for now, it's a way to teach us these lessons and give us opportunities to play out these epic scripts and legends of our lives.
So do you think that the so-called system is just a hurdle that we have to jump over? Is it like a thing that the reality is it's operating in the society that we're living in? And so if we fall for it and comply to it, that's our choice. But if we go out on our own and do our something that goes against it, potentially, that's also our choice. Is it kind of like it's not about disregarding it. It's more about just like choosing what serves you and what doesn't, I guess. I just look at a lot of the things and I feel like from what it sounds and what we've been speaking about, there's a lot of malicious intent with whoever's controlling a lot of the narratives that create these societal norms that we should and should not do. And there's a lot of malicious intent behind it. And I just wonder, like, is there a way of escaping it, or is it just more of a way of having the courage enough to do things that actually serve you instead of just complying and fitting in?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's the ultimate, right, enlightenment, which has been documented. There's different lineages, like the Tibetan Buddhists, for example. They have protocols. They've mapped it all out for millennia, right? And so the ultimate is just transcending this realm, which is essentially awakening and then reaching enlightenment. And another way of saying that is realizing that we're not just our bodies. This is just one drop in the ocean of who we are. So you train your mind to, right, slow down your thoughts and then realize that all these thoughts that are puppeting us around are actually an illusion. And you learn to train your mind, your awareness to expand beyond all those constructs. And then you can see in a whole new way. And another part of that is, hey, we're living on Earth, so the financial system is screwed. So maybe it's, creating your own business or, creating a community in nature where you can live off the land so that you don't have to do this job you don't hate, which is taking up so much energy of your mind that is, creating all this stress and anxiety in your life that's preventing you from reaching a higher state. Mm-hmm. So it's really a game that has many levels to it.
Yeah. What do you think it comes down to? Do you think it comes down to like money's one of the things that a lot of people strive towards? There's people that are chasing happiness and whatever that means. There's a lot of different metrics that people kind of chase and deem as success. Through all the stuff that you've been doing and the adventure that you've been on in your life, have you kind of got an understanding on what actually matters in life? Have you thought about what are the things that actually matter, and do you devote your attention towards that?
That's a great question. I believe the number one thing that matters is just being yourself. And we've heard that forever, but it took so long for me to actually get that because I was chipping away at it. And there's parts of me that were still in survival thinking like, oh, like I can't be myself in this way because of this, right? But every time they've done studies actually that the authenticity is the highest vibration, even beyond love by many levels. So when you're authentic, just miracles happen. And that's why we're here, is to really be ourselves and trust that.
That's cool. The authenticity is higher than anything else.
Yeah.
Oh,
Makes
it just
sense,
makes
right?
me think, right? Because we're constantly trying to, typically, we're constantly trying to be someone that we're not in the hopes of fitting in and having a tribe so we don't feel left out. But the irony of it is the most attractive thing is authenticity, which is uniqueness, which is not being anyone else.
Exactly.
Like, maybe we're on this journey of trying to achieve all this level of success, but in the process, what we don't really understand is that the real success is being able to embody who we truly are and make our decisions on the premise of what that soul desires. And then when we can do that, a byproduct of that is all the external success that we're actually chasing in the first place.
100%.
It's like,
it's redefining success to fully receiving yourself is the ultimate success, because everything else happens from that. Yeah, we're externalizing our reality, most of us, and chasing something which is actually chasing us away from ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. I'm lighting up right now. What I'm thinking of is there's this, I've caught myself in a loop of chasing a lot of external validation. And I was working with a mentor, Jim, to help overcome a lot of this external validation. Like, why am I making my decisions based on what other people are going to perceive me of by doing it, as opposed to just what I truly want to do? Like, what is this thing that is driving me to chase external validation? And the thing that's so profound to think about is you want external validation, but trying to please people in the short term is only getting you external validation in the short term, but you don't actually amount to anything great in the long term by doing that. And the ultimate way to get external validation is by amounting to something so great. And the way you do that is by being authentic and just being the true version of yourself, whether people like it or not. And then you build up something, and then ultimately you get way more external validation as a byproduct of just being you. I think too often we're trying to chase what people are going to think of us, and because we maybe aren't the person we are trying to be right now, we try and show up in a different way, and then people might be validating us in the short term, but we're actually not building ourselves up. This piece around authenticity is powerful, I think. I feel like it's our biggest superpower.
It really is. And we're bifurcating as a species. So it's also like, do you care about people that are really brainwashed and judgmental, that no matter what you do, they're going to have this huge filter over it? And then there's people that are on this path of realizing, hey, it's time to wake up and let's let go of judgment and really open up to a higher reality. And those are the people that are going to see you, and people that are being authentic.
What's bifurcating mean?
It's basically splitting into two.
Right. And so what do you mean by that, like in this example?
So humanity right now, we're kind of splitting into two, where there's people that are waking up and realizing, hey, it's time to clean our body and live in a healthy way and take care of ourselves and connect deeper inside. And then there's people that are disconnecting from themselves more and more and becoming robots, so to speak.
How interconnected is our body and our energy?
If you look at it like layers of an onion, think of it like your body, for most people, is the only visible layer that you can see. And then there's different astral and causal bodies that we have, right? It just keeps going, multiple layers. And so the body is the one that's vibrating the slowest. If you see vibration, then you can see there's just like there's ultraviolet light, you can't see it because it's vibrating too fast beyond the spectrum of what our eyes can see. So it's all connected, and essentially it just keeps expanding outwards.
I don't quite understand this concept of vibrating too fast so we can't see it. What are you referencing here? And what do you mean by vibrating?
So everything's actually vibrating or moving at a certain speed. right? Every type of thing that we call matter. And essentially, like ultraviolet light, there's some lights that you
What's
can't see.
ultraviolet light?
It's a light above, like faster, vibrating faster than the violet or purple ray that we can see. So like UV light, you could see, you put it on and things glow in the dark when you put it on, so you can see the stuff that glows. And there's all these lights beyond. This, what we can see with the eye is just a very small spectrum of all the frequencies in the universe, basically. And so a lot of who we really are, we can't see it with our physical eyes, although you can learn, some people can train to see it. And so we've forgotten that we're so much bigger than we've been taught. We think we're this small little person and this identity, and we stay in this Westworld type of script of like, oh, hey, I'm lazy and I'm this, so I'm just going to keep limiting myself every day. But at any moment, we can choose to wake up and realize that was just a lesson, and we can totally change our identity. We can totally step out of that script into something great.
How do we do that? Because I feel like there's probably a lot of people listening that maybe is stuck in an identity that's not serving them.
100%.
And so being able to click your fingers and change, I would imagine that'd be quite a challenging thing, but maybe it's not.
It's only challenging until you see it in a different way, because the identity that you have only exists in your mind. It's not actually real, right? And other people can't really see it. There's so many beautiful people, right, that think they're not beautiful, that you're like, you're beautiful. It's just something in their mind, right? And so it's disidentifying. You imagine just taking a step back and realizing there's a witness. You're just observing life, and you can see that there's just a mask you think is you, and you just look at it. And if you just start looking at it and putting your attention on it, it starts to disappear, because you're realizing this isn't actually real. You start to see that. And there's exercises and tools. And in our school, we focus on that as the first step to dissolve the identity. Because once you're not the small, little Daniel or whatever that was autistic and couldn't make eye contact, you now can download the information that you've been missing. You can literally receive and reconnect with all these aspects that you thought you weren't, that are positive. And that's where the miracles happen.
Yeah. Zooming out from your mind and being like kind of bird's eye view and go, it's not me. Like it's like,
it's just a story.
It's just a story. So then you have your identity, and what reinforces the identity is the stories that you're telling yourself about life and what you see.
Exactly. It could be a few memories that snowball and into a whole complex. I'm like, well, this happened, so I guess I'm not lovable, right? And that's what happened to me.
And then that story then dictates the actions that you take in your life. And then those actions dictate your environment. So the way to change your environment and live a life that you actually want to, in the event that you're not in an environment that you're loving right now, is to reprogram the identity. And when you reprogram the identity, you'll create new stories about life and what it is, and then your actions will change because of that, and then you'll be able to live the thing. So you're kind of working on that subconscious reprogramming of going, okay, what are the actual stories that I'm telling myself that are keeping me stuck in this position? And then 100%. Once we can reprogram that, we then change everything that we have in our external world.
Yeah, and that's the smartest thing to do, because that takes the least amount of effort and time compared to working jobs you hate, or doing all these things, or spending years in a relationship that is reflecting back an old identity, and then you have to break up, and there's all this drama because it's all part of an old script. You want to stop living that script now, because it keeps sabotaging and limiting your life, pushing money and love away, right?
Yeah, this is interesting. You just said there that it's the quickest way. And the only reason, because if in isolation it doesn't seem quick, you're like, oh, it's actually a fair bit of work to do. But if you compare it to being in a relationship you hate or a job you don't like, and then you map that out and go, okay, like, yes, this bit right here is going to take a little bit of time. In isolation, that can look like a lot of work. But if you look at the alternative, spending the next 5 years in a job that you hate, getting bossed around by someone you don't even like, that's a long time of unfulfilling work.
Exactly.
So having the polarity makes the thing to make change actually be more realistic and more, you can have this confidence that it's actually obtainable.
100%. And people usually don't make the connection. They go through multiple rounds of the same relationship, right? It looks like a different person, but why do they keep gaslighting me like over and over again? And then you realize like, oh, like, am I gaslighting myself in a certain way? Am I abandoning myself in certain ways? And, relationships, work, everything in life is a mirror. And it's not your fault. It's not to blame you, but it's to stay curious and to realize, what am I still a match for that is keeping me in this situation? And the way faster and easier thing is to actually take responsibility to shift what's inside, and then the outside just shifts automatically. But most people are flipped and they've externalized everything, which makes things very long and hard to change, because you don't really change things without changing the inside as well, right?
Yeah. So what do you think one of the most important things is, that ownership piece then?
100%. We've been programmed into being victims, and look, I've had so much abuse. I can list 1,000 things of how I could be a victim, and I had to really go through each one and really take the lesson from it and shift that perspective. But when I did that, the pattern stopped.
Why do people be victims? Is it because it's easier in the short term?
Well, I think also, right, the system is there. We aren't taught how to be resilient in school. We aren't taught how to deal with our emotions. And so we're being bombarded by all this fake stuff. It's weakening us. And then we're told that we're just this little body. You got to do this and focus on the outside world. And it's not to say, of course, we're going to take action and live life. But if we forget what's inside, we're going to keep thinking that people are out to get us. And there's when it's also, we're playing a game together. Everything in this life is corresponding to your perspective and the energy that you're putting out, which is based a lot in your subconscious, which you're not aware of anymore. So it's actually easy, if you know how to do it, to go into your subconscious like a video game, and you'll be able to see memories and objects and learn how to transform them, because you're the director of the show.
I love this so much, because I'm just thinking about how freeing it is when you know it's in your control. Like when you truly embody the ownership piece and you know it's up to you, you are the director of it, you can actually make change. The problem with being a victim is, yes, you get an immediate dopamine hit of, I'm not the problem, it's someone else's problem, it's not me. But what you're also doing is you're putting the control of how you feel in the life that you live in someone else's hands who doesn't even give a fuck about you. Like by being a victim, you're immediately saying to yourself that I'm not the problem, so you get a little dopamine hit, but then you're still stuck in the exact same place. And the person who you're deeming to be the one that can fix it is the one who's made the problem, which is like, you're the problem, you need to fix this, you need to do this, and then I'm going to be happy. It's like, well, that person's chilling, he's fine. You're the one that's getting beat up about this. And by you being a victim, you're actually taking the power out of your hands. You're dictating the way you feel and your mood based on how someone else is acting. And you're removing the power from yourself. 100%. And there's a freeing nature that comes with taking ownership, because you know that I'm the one that's put myself here. I'm the one that can put myself out of here.
That's it. And it seems so much easier when we're in the state like you and I, but just to also have compassion for the people still stuck in that victim consciousness, it can be hard because your mind has been programmed to be like, oh, if I take responsibility for this, that means I'm a bad person. And we've been taught all this good and bad and its duality. So it's like your mind has been weaponized. And the key really is remembering that you're actually innocent. Like your memory got wiped as a soul. You came to earth. You've been programmed in all these ways. Of course you're going to fuck up. Of course all this shit's going to happen. And once you start taking responsibility, it's not that you've actually done anything wrong, that you're a bad person. It's that you've been in this VR headset telling you to do all this stuff and you're taking it off. And you want to take responsibility, but also not beat yourself up. And that makes it less overwhelming, because I think a lot of people are scared to go there because it's just like, oh, this is way too much. But it's actually overwhelming only when you stay in the victim mentality, because then life just keeps screwing with you all the time. It's going to keep making it harder and harder. If life just keeps getting harder and harder for you, like, this is ridiculous. It's just helping you get to the point where you go inside so you can actually flip the switch.
Yeah, it's powerful. I'm just thinking now is the more you embody it as well, the more you take ownership, the more freeing it becomes.
Yeah.
Because the more trust you build that it's actually all part of the process.
Totally.
I'm just thinking about my journey. I'm going, the more I've embodied the fact that everything is on me, it's my responsibility, the more I've embodied that, the lighter I feel.
Yeah.
And like, it's the most freeing feeling to know that when anything good or bad happens, you know that you're the reason for this. And it's so freeing. It's like there's no one to blame. There's nothing right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It just is.
It's just a lesson.
Yeah.
It's part of the journey. And that lightness that we feel as we do this is like, think of a status bar of your energy. Like most people are operating at like 1 or 2% of their energy reserves. And that's why it's so hard to get out of bed or speak the truth and do all these things. And we take it on like, oh, I'm not courageous, I'm not confident, but we're just zapped of most of our energy. And so every time you forgive someone or let go of a relationship that's not serving you or speak the truth, you get back part of your energy, and then it becomes easier to go and do it even deeper.
So what do you think all of those things are storing? Like they're filling up space in us that isn't serving us, and it's blocking us from having more space to be able to invite good in. What's like the toxic relationship that we're keeping in? Like, what are all these things doing when it comes to our energy? Like, are they blocking us from having energy, or what's the main thing you're referencing here?
They're draining and blocking because, you know, everything that's working against us, it's like driving with the brakes on. So you're trying to make money at work, but you're holding on to this story that you're not lovable. And so you're scared to really do this stuff that's going to make you more money, for example, right? Or have a better relationship. And if you're in a toxic relationship, you're just in a feedback loop where you're being controlled or you don't feel safe to be yourself. And it's probably from, you know, the same pattern that you just didn't resolve in childhood. And so every time you choose to trust the inner voice, which is always there if you just get quiet, then you free up so much of that energy and show your body it's safe to be me more. And you break those spells, those patterns that you've been programmed with, oftentimes from many lifetimes from your grandparents and beyond, right? That you're here to be the revolution in your family. We're all waking up here together.
Mm. When you look at your journey, like, was there main pivotal moments for you on your spiritual journey where things really started to change? Like, when you're talking about these times where parents are going through a divorce, went through big depressions, went on medication, you know, I would assume, like, when we look at what we've spoken about today, from the age of 4, something seemed off. Like, you seemed different to everyone. Some would call you a wizard, a real life wizard, which is crazy. I say it's crazy, but you wouldn't say it's crazy because you feel like everyone deep down. But for me, I'm like, okay, well, this is I'm like going, okay, this is a bit like woo-woo. I don't really know what's going on here. Like, I remember when you were first explaining it to me at the ranch, you're explaining all this stuff about how you could see people heal things, like you like diffuse a light by just looking at it, like all these sorts of things. I just go like, how does this all work? Do you feel like there was a turning point for you at all? Or do you feel like it's just been this slow progression of like more and more consciousness, more and more like ability to embody who you are? Like, was there any turning points? Do you know?
Well, I was born with it, and then it shut down from all the trauma and abuse and things that happened to me. And then when I was 20 years old, I woke up from a dream, and the dream told me, if you go to this place at this time, your life will change forever. And so I went there, and this point, like, I couldn't even go to a grocery store, freak out with people. I had so much social anxiety. So went to a festival in San Francisco with, I think, 70, 80,000 people. I was literally having a panic attack, but I had to go because this dream was more than a dream, right? And there was a guy with a sign that said free energy healings. And I didn't even know what that was, but I was like, I'm going to try it. And in 5 minutes, it's like I woke up from a bad dream, and it's just changed my life. So that was a pivotal moment that brought me on the spiritual path as an adult. And that's when I started learning energy healing. I didn't even think this was real. And now that's what I teach people. It's my life because it's so powerful.
So you're at a festival and you saw someone with a sign that said free energy healing.
Yeah.
And you just decided to go and do it at this festival.
Yeah.
So, like, what did he do in that moment for you, and how did things change from that point?
So he essentially, I basically was living in hell. Like, I was so insecure. Like, if someone laughed like 20 feet away, I thought they were making fun of me. Like, I was so paranoid and schizo and depressed and didn't know how to interact with people. I was just like, hey, what should I say next? You know, like I was just completely
Really?
disconnected. Oh yeah. It was just so screwed up.
How
know?
long did that last for?
I mean, that just got worse and worse from childhood to my teens to early adulthood. And so for the first time, for literally in 5 minutes, he just sent me energy. It was going like this and also chanting like some sounds and sound waves. And he basically started walking farther away from me. And as he was walking back, it felt like me, who I thought was me, just started spreading. And then all the anxiety just was like relaxed. And all of a sudden I could feel these people, like there's a few people that were watching. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I love these people. I could feel their love. And like, I thought it was enlightened, but it was just the very first level of my journey. But that's how profound it was, from like literally being in a cage of hell to just like relax and feeling like I'm part of the world and being able to connect with people. And that was in 5 minutes. I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. If that can do that in 5 minutes, I want to learn how to do that.
So after that moment, were you more open moving forward entirely, or was it this process where you had to like work on getting?
Oh, that was just the day and night switch. I was like, I'm focusing on this now. I'm just going to try it all. And that started my spiritual journey of 16 years around the world.
So what did that look like?
Started off with learning Reiki, which is a more simple form of energy healing, to going to India and meditating and studying with masters, going to the Amazon, plant medicines, living with tribes, to all these very strange experts in different fields that apparently had different abilities and could teach me different ways. And so I, just trained with dozens of different masters and experts throughout the last 16 years.
So most of the experts have all been like Eastern philosophy?
It was a mix. There's, Eastern, there's a lot of shamans, and then there's, people like you and me that just also trained in different ways. So just very different lineages, different ethnicities, genders, everything, just all of it, young, old.
Was there any moments where you were like wowed by someone and you went like, wow, this guy or girl is unique? Any masters that you've experienced that have just been the most profound or have done the most crazy things?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I trained with a master for a month, and he had me stay in a cave overnight with giant spiders and cobras. And in the morning, he came and materialized a crystal out of thin air and gave it to me. And he did many miracles. My friend had a big lump on his neck. He touched it and it instantly disappeared. He could just touch me with his finger and my whole body would light on fire. This is in a super intense way. He could break a bunch of bricks or metal. He could blindfold himself and drive for 40 minutes at night on a motorcycle in a busy streets of Java, Indonesia, and many other things. So hard to believe for many.
Sober, or are you tripping in this moment?
Completely sober.
Completely sober.
No substances at all.
I remember interviewing Brad and David, from the founders of Mana Vitality, and they mentioned that there's people out here that don't eat. There's people that live off the land, not off the land, like off the light, and they don't eat any food. And I remember I was blown away by that. But now you're saying that there's someone that can touch something and heal it completely. Like what, like cancers or anything like this, like tumors, like all this stuff. You know people that can just heal things.
100%.
So if that's the case, why do people die from cancers and things like this?
Well, there's many layers to it. All illness has some type of psycho-emotional component. And I believe based off where it is in your body, you can even Google it. It has a corresponding meaning and lesson for you. And there's also the system that, corporations make way more money and power by keeping people sick. So suppressing natural cures, which used to be the norm, and having petroleum-based, often toxic prescriptions that don't get to the root of it, but just treat the symptoms most of the time.
Right. So this is an interesting thing, because I was walking down the like medicine aisle of Whole Foods earlier today, and I saw that like a painkiller, we call them like Nurofen in Australia, but it's like ibuprofen or whatever it's called. A whole packet of it was like $2. And then next to it had like some natural herbs of like something like a really like, I don't know, some sort of like natural supplement. And it was like $80 for the same size thing. And I just went, I wonder if the herbs are 40%. No, I wonder if the herbs are 40 times the amount to make, or is the painkiller just cheaper so it's easily accessible so that more people can be on them, so more people can be more numb?
It's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely a design to keep people on toxic supplements and painkillers, right? So many people are addicted, sadly, and not a lot of people know, but it's growing about all these natural treatments that are actually good for you and that can have profound effects. And there's no government that's standardizing and subsidizing natural medicines at all. So there's individual companies that have to go through all these hoops and pay for things to make them. So there is a disparity among those prices.
Yeah. So I guess when the government doesn't support something, it's a lot harder to bring costs down because they've got to go and do everything all independently and all on their own. You said a massive focus for you at the moment is your health, and you put a massive focus on that. Why are you feeling like that's so important? And talk to me about your health journey.
Yeah, well, starting at a young age, at 15, I had my wisdom teeth taken out. And within a few months, I became narcoleptic almost. I would fall asleep driving cars, in class all the time. My nickname was the sleeper because I would just fall asleep all the time, just brain fog, depression. And I was 15, I was acting like Joe Biden from last year. And I'm like, what's going on here? And recently I took a scan and they found that my 4 wisdom teeth were all infected, called cavitations. And about 90% of people that get the wisdom teeth out have these infections that then seep into their brain and their body and just slowly cause all these horrible health effects. And so I've been literally spent all my money, right? I literally have no money left my whole life just doing my best to heal from these debilitating issues where I could just barely get out of bed and brain fog and memory and regrowing my brain from all the brain damage I had from all the things that happened earlier. And so I just had surgery about 10, 11 days ago, and they took out the infections and I feel like a new person. And I just want to spread the message that if you've had your wisdom teeth taken out or root canals, go get them tested with a cone beam test, because the regular x-rays, the dentists have no idea. They can't find them. And chances are you may have something that if you take out could change your life and your health.
So why do people take their wisdom teeth out if they're not supposed to?
Because the system tells you that it's a good idea. I guess I'm not an expert on it. Sometimes I guess it is a good idea, and then you do it in a better way where it won't reinfect, because they're not usually doing it in a good way. And for a lot of people, I don't think you really need to take them out. God gave you them perhaps for a reason, right?
So what else with your health? You mentioned that there was you had a problem with mold in your home, and it affected you, and it made you prioritize your health a little bit more. I remember you explaining that to me when we first met. Did that kind of make you more aware and conscious of how important it is to look after your health?
I mean, I've been on this health journey for most of my life, but the mold was really tough because it just took me to the depths of, again, just couldn't get out of bed. Like my brain just stopped working and I didn't know what was going on. And a lot of people, especially in Austin here, say they get mold, and it's becoming such an epidemic, I think, And so it's important to keep your house clean of mold and just continually detox so that you can have a clean instrument. And for some reason, for most people, it takes so much time and money and effort just to be healthy because we're living in such a distorted society with all these toxins.
Mm. Yeah. I think about all of this, and I think about the drives behind people and why they're doing what they're doing. And often it takes a challenge in a particular area to want to make change in that area. We're more so a lot of the time reactive as opposed to proactive.
Yeah.
Like we wait until something goes wrong to then focus on the thing. But if we were proactive in the first place, knowing that could go wrong, nothing would go wrong in the first place. And then we'd never have the problem. But it's weird. We seem to value something more once we don't have it, and that's wired in us. And so we don't put an emphasis on fixing something until it's gone wrong.
100%. And that's why I see it all as a blessing, because those biggest challenges is what brought me to this path and what helped wake me up and be a better person. Mm-hmm. And now let's definitely be more proactive, because when you clear what's inside of you, it's not going to play out in real life, and you can actually, do more of this inner work physically, emotionally, mentally, and that translates to amazing wins in your life.
Mm. What's your focus kind of day to day? What are the sort of things that say you wake up and you go like, things I'm trying to achieve for the day? Is there anything specific that you're focusing a lot of your energy towards throughout your days now? I'm curious to know, because obviously like you're doing lots of travel, you're meeting lots of people, you're doing different modalities, you're unlocking all of these things, you're using your knowledge, wisdom, and what you have access to um, as a commodity in a sense to get you into different rooms. I'm fascinated to know what your priorities are and what your focuses are throughout your days.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, that's been kind of the same, but I'm doing it in a new way now, which is, you know, instead of trying to fix myself, uh, I want to upgrade myself and just be more and more connected. And there's still parts of my brain that got damaged in childhood where things like left and right, sometimes I get confused with, and things that I used to be ashamed about that I just starting to talk about, or just getting in my body now where I just don't even really see what's going on around me because I'm in a whole different realm, or seeing holographs of things. So it's basically just, getting in my body, being more human, and starting a show to really document all the things I'm learning, because I'm an adventurer, and like just really wanting to continue to explore the coolest technologies and supplements and spiritual teachers and masters and just amazing people in all sorts of fields. And I feel like that's just my biggest joy, is to continue to just learn and explore and put these pieces together, and then to share it for the world, because I think it's important to bring back this wisdom and these tools to help us shift our planet right now, which is going completely crazy.
When you say you want to be more human, what does that mean?
Mm. So a lot of people call me the wizard, and they look up to me for that, if they even believe it's possible. And for me, I was born with that. Like that came easy, and I keep training that. But the human part, I guess, would be, just being able to just stay in my body and feel more connected in my body, and connect deeper with people. I'm single right now, get into a relationship, which I've had a couple short ones recently, but for most of my life, I couldn't even handle that. And so the basically just being able to interface this very strange and unique being that's me, coming to Earth and learning, getting in better shape physically, and just being able to just kind of bridge, all the stuff that I've had, and do my best to connect and share it with people, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would you say the challenges are of being a so-called wizard and not being able to be human at times? What are some of the challenges that come with that?
A big one has been with a lot of my family. They don't really believe it. I had my some of my family. I was like, watch the telepathy tapes. If you don't know, it's this became viral. It's this woman that took a team of scientists and proved that these kids that were autistic were telepathic and had all these abilities that many people don't think are real. And so that was kind of what I went through as a child. But growing up, they were like, I was literally being flown around. I remember, maybe like 7-8 years ago, to these world leaders, very powerful people, and giving them sessions and healing. And I was trying to like make conversation, and they didn't understand what was going on. They didn't believe it. It's like, why don't you, there's a Baskin Robbins down the street. Why don't you try getting a job at the Baskin Robbins? And I was like, you want to just serve some ice cream for minimum wage? Like, there was such a disconnect, but it's just like, that's what happens if you don't believe in it, then it's like, they still don't understand what I do.
Wait, so these big leaders were telling you to get a job at the Baskin Robbins?
No, this was my family that told me to get. I was trying to tell them like, oh, look, like this person flew me out, and things like that. And they just couldn't believe it. They just couldn't believe that this was real. And they didn't think I was actually, they wanted me to get like a real job, because that's their programming. So a lot of it is just growing up. Like, I don't really have friends from my childhood anymore. Like, it's like I had to it just, everything died because I felt so outcast. I was rejected. I was made fun of. I was bullied. And I thought I was just like the worst person ever. Like I just hated myself. And so I had to just let that all die. And now I have the coolest friends in the world, travel around. But it's like I had to die and be born again to accept myself and just trust that not everyone's going to believe or accept me. Right. But that's been a challenge because some of them are my family, and some of them, when you just meet someone on a plane, it's like, what do you do? It's like, what am I going to say? I really hate that question. I don't really like to talk about it because usually it's just, again, it's a different operating system. Yet now more and more that's changing, and more people are realizing that this is real and that they can tap into it themselves, because it's really not about me. It's about reminding people that they have it too.
Yeah. So, you don't like the question of what do you do, and the reason for that is because you feel like a lot of people won't actually have the consciousness or be able to understand specifically what you do. So when you explain it, they'll be like, "What's he on about?"
Yeah, at least that was my limiting belief in the past. Yet I think times are changing now, for sure. Yeah.
When you say times are changing, what do you mean? Do you think it's becoming more normal, or because I feel like there's a lot, as you said, there's a lot of levels to this. There's a lot of layers. Like for me, there's a lot of stuff that you're saying that's going over my head that I'm not that aware of. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that potentially is the same. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening that understand it more than I do. But then you go, okay, but then there's even more layers to this as well. And through some of the masters that you've met, and you see the level that they've got to, potentially you can't really relate to that just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of this like I'm just wondering, I'm fascinated by where it starts. Like, how does someone get to the level that you're at or these masters are at? Is it a quick switch overnight, discovering a new thing? Is it like a slow progression through experience and what you learn? Like, how does one get to this? And what are even the benefits of being able to understand this as opposed to just complying to the system, so to say?
Well, the good news is that you can remember at any moment. I don't see it like I'm teaching people in my school anything new, but I'm just training their mind a little bit with energy to just slow down their thoughts and tap back into who they are. And many people just remember their power, their strength, and even sometimes past lives that they experienced, because that's how we keep going to actually train in this realm.
Past lives?
So essentially we're souls that are reincarnating here until we complete the training.
What does this mean?
It means that we're not just this flesh suit that lives our life and then dies and then that's it. It's that this is our classroom, and we have multiple classrooms. So you could say this might be high school level 3, and then you go to level 4 next life, and your memory gets wiped, but there's ways to actually remember and reconnect with those lives. And it's a way to actually learn lessons in a deeper way.
Wow. What I'm fascinated to ask you about is the concept around time. Like, what are your thoughts on time specifically? I know it's very broad, but I'm fascinated. There's a lot of people that don't subscribe to time. And, in society, there's a lot of things like you've only got this amount of time to do this. You've only got this long to live. You've only got this amount of time to do X, Y, and Z. And I guess probably the main metric that this society operates on is time. Everything's time. We booked in the studio at a certain time, and this is the thing a lot of us kind of organize our life around. What are your thoughts on time?
Time is a construct, and it's not linear. And so if you look at time in vertical time, meaning we're living in this now, right now, we're just in this eternal now, and you can actually access timelines in the past and future. So we've had people that change a memory in their past, and then all of a sudden, for decades, their mom has a bad relationship with them. They can't take feedback. And then the mom's like, I want to hear your feedback, and totally open, and changes their entire relationship just by changing a memory from the past. And same goes with the future. You can tap into a better future timeline and bring that energy into this moment. And then all of a sudden, boom, you manifest miracles. And that's one of the things I teach.
How does that work?
It's quite simple because if you see everything as energy and you're a radio, you just choose. You're like, just take, for example, if you want to tap into a new energy that will help you manifest, you just get quiet and you imagine yourself and, with the love of your life or, successful in a certain way. And how does that feel? So if you really let yourself feel that, like it's already happening, now you have the exact frequency that is going to magnetize that reality. And then you bring it into your body and you just let it flow throughout your body. And you're telling your body, which is really your subconscious, this is who we are. This is the reality. You're choosing it like you're choosing a menu or changing the channel. And then when you learn how to hold that frequency, wild things will happen in your life all of a sudden to change things around.
Yeah, I'm even just thinking about on a smaller scale when we did the breathwork meditation before this. One of the things you said at the very end was visualize the millions of lives that are going to be impacted by this podcast. And the visualization came with so much ease. And it wasn't just like oh, wow, there's going to be millions of people that are going to be impacted. I went to one specific person and how they were feeling. So like I was, and it was so crystal clear. It was this, and I started smiling in the whole thing because I visualized this person that's on a walk to the bus to go hop on the bus to then go to their job. And I remember, and I visualized him walking to the bus stop and he hears something that we said on the podcast and it sparked this thing in him where he just got this rush of motivation to make some change in his life. And in that very moment, he started making decisions for him and he went, it's time for me to change. And I visualized it like crystal clear, what he looked like, how he was feeling, his reaction, the headphones he had in his ears when he was listening to it. And like it all just happened so quickly. You said spend 30 seconds on it. Yeah. And that was instant. It just came to me. This one very person. Yeah. I remember I got this grin about it. And when you're referencing the feeling, that like rushed through my body and I embodied that. Would you say that that's kind of what you're doing, but with all of the memories you're trying to obtain and things you're trying to get in your life? And that's what you mean by manifestation?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's really how you do it. And for those that are listening that are Christian, for example, I align with a lot of those values. And I've studied ancient texts that they took out of the Bible or said are not meant to be in the Bible. And basically, in a nutshell, what it's saying, Yeshua is saying, here's how you actually do what I'm doing. Because in the Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive. But then they took out the part that tells you how to do that, which essentially says, connect your mind and your heart, let your heart and mind be one. And your mind is thoughts, right, which are electric signals. Your heart is a magnetic field. So when you put that together, you create an electromagnetic field. And they've done studies on this where it instantly shifts the entire reality in quantum physics. And then you envelop yourself in your desires, he says. So you're basically just feeling it like it's already done. And so when you combine the emotion with your thoughts or visualization and you just cycle it through you create a shock wave that's telling the universe, oh, this is what we're bringing in next. This is what we ordered for lunch.
And then is the missing piece in this action to bring it to life?
Exactly. So before we take action, right, first you decide. You just decide like, this is what I'm choosing. This is what I'm calling in, right? And you let go of the how because people are like, well, I can't afford it. Or how am I going to meet this person? It's like, it's going to come to you. Just trust. First, you just got to decide what is it specifically that you're calling in and just choose it fully, 100%, right? And then after that, you listen to your intuition, you get in the feminine, and you might hear a voice or get a hunch to just text this person you haven't talked to in years. They might become a client or connect you with someone. That's exactly what you need, right? And so that's the action you take. You then take intuitive action by learning to trust that inner voice inside that we all have, and then being decisive, right? And the masculine energy, which is, right, just trusting and taking that action and being decisive and continuing to do that. And when you balance those two energies, then anything is possible.
Do you think people can get caught in their intuition and in their trust and then they lack any action and don't achieve any of the stuff?
The definition of trust is to take action on what you know. So people can say they trust, but they don't actually trust then if they're not taking the action.
Right. So trust without action isn't actually trust.
It's not. It's just spiritual bypassing and procrastination where you're just kind of pretending.
Fuck, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Trust without action is not trust. It's spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, because it's like mental masturbation.
It is. Wow. See, that's an interesting frame. I would look at there's probably a lot of people that are in the spiritual masturbation phase
100%.
where there's an inability to act.
And I've been in it too, you know?
Yeah, and Salim talks about this. He says, we're not put on this earth to do nothing. Like we still are here to execute on our calling, on what we're here to be doing. People can get in this state of like surrendering to the thing, and they might label it as trust, but by doing so, they actually just surrender to doing anything in the first place. And so they become so spiritual that they surrender to the thought of even doing anything, and then they end up doing nothing. And then potentially, if you get into that state, there could be a lack of maybe fulfillment in your life. Potentially, there might be like some sort of missing piece when you don't act.
100%, you know, and you know, just to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, in the Rosicrucian philosophy, it's not like God and the devil are good and bad. There's actually two poles, and they call them Lucifer and Ahriman, or Satan. And so the satanic trap is, it's like, oh, there is no God. Let's just have a bunch of sex, get expensive cars, materialism. And so people get stuck in that realm and maybe taking action for that, but disconnecting from the higher truth. And then in the Lucifer trap is like, oh, I am God, as in I'm just going to escape this world. This world is fake. But then they bypass and dissociate and realize, oh, I don't need to help anyone. This is all just fake, right? And so it's about coming in the center, which is the Christ consciousness, or, you know, the God consciousness, where you realize you're here for a reason, right? This is an important realm for your training, and it's about taking action and staying connected inside to your own divine truth.
Yeah. What did you say? God consciousness? Yeah. I was thinking about this concept because when I first started getting interested in business, I started attracting and being interested in people that have mastered the area of business, but they're not very connected. They're probably in that, what, Lucifer, you mentioned that.
I guess it depends. You know, sometimes people can be in both, but the more like what they call Ahriman or Satan is more the material realm, right?
Yeah, just material. It's like we've mastered business, we've got a lot of money, we have fancy cars, lots of sex, or beautiful women around us, whatever it might be. And that can be like a desire that a lot of people that don't have that yet want to chase and get because it looks great. But in the process, potentially you're not connected at all. Like
100%.
And so, but then you have the people that are on the opposite realm. I can't remember what episode it was, but when I was interviewing Brad from Mana the second time, we were talking about this businessman but spiritual is a really powerful spot to be in. It's that middle ground of going, like, we're not trying to disassociate from the society that we're in, but what we're trying to do is be so connected to us, like the energies and the you probably, I'm not sure if you would call it a higher power, but whatever it is, be so connected, but use that as a power to actually thrive in the areas of business as well. And when you can be a spiritually connected business person, I feel like that's the sweet spot. Because then you can make the most and squeeze the most out of what society actually has to offer, what we get to actually make from our lives while we're living in this meat suit, and then, but then also be so connected.
And share that with the world, just make the biggest impact, right?
Yeah, this is really cool. What I'm interested in, if we tie back into this time piece, I feel like there's a lot of beliefs that we have that they're like imaginary ceilings that box us in. There are all these things that we think are truths, but they're actually just interpretations.
Yeah.
And none of them are really real. What are your thoughts on the belief that we only have 100 years to live, or we only live for 80 years? And do you think that there's this norm of we only live for 80 to 100 years, or 80 to 90 years? And do you think that actually makes people die at 80 to 90 years old? What are your thoughts on living and how long we can, and like mortality and how long we actually live on this earth?
Well, beliefs are the strongest filter to our reality. So whatever you believe, reality's going to prove you right, right? Whether it's negative or positive. And so when we realize that everything is a belief and that you could change it, you can just see that there's people that are hundreds of years old, right? There's even the Chinese military verified that this Taoist master lived around 256 years old in China, and there's books about him. And
Just one guy.
one guy, his master, they said was around 500. And there's a lot of people like that in India as well, mostly in the East. Yet there's, accounts of that in Europe as well. So it's something where, emperors and kings have studied this, right? And I've gone down that rabbit hole, and there's actually different immortality formulas that I've gotten access to. And one of them is based off these herbs that do two things. One, they detox your body, because the more clean your body is, the longer it's going to live. Makes sense. The second one is interesting, is that it also dissolves negative thoughts, because the less negative thoughts you have, the slower you age.
So have you met people that have been living for a long time, or have you just heard of people?
I haven't met, you can call them immortals directly, or people above, 120, yet a few of my teachers have actually studied with them. And people that I trust that just speak the truth and can tap in. There's no need for them to make that up, because they have their own amazing miracles they can do. And so I've gotten a lot of stories from them.
How do you know about these herbs, and how do you know the effect that they have?
Well, a lot of them I've studied or experienced them myself, and these formulas and technologies that I've had access to, I use this similar timeline technique that I teach to just tap into the vibration, and all of a sudden, I'm with this scientist, or I'm in this secret lab. And so I use that to discover and get access to these different things I wanted to explore.
So are these nature-led supplements and herbs, or are they made in a lab?
I've tried some of both, right? I'm pretty open-minded, but more and more I'm leaning obviously to as much natural as possible. But there are some technologies and some compounds that, especially when we're being bombarded by so many things, to help regrow your brain, for example, that have helped me tremendously.
Do you feel like you take anything willy-nilly, or do you kind of really try and understand what you're actually putting in your body?
When I was younger, I kind of went ham, and, I was just like, I need to fix myself. And I was irresponsible many times and quite wild in my experimentation, often taking things I probably shouldn't have taken, or too much of it. And so I've really, after some challenging experiences, tempered myself and really tune in and do more research. And also through my network, it's really word of mouth, where I trust someone very deeply, and then they recommend something, right, and vet it before experimenting with it.
Yeah. I just get fascinated by all these potions and all these different things. It's literally like a wizard. And I'm like looking at all of these potions and all this different stuff, and I just go like, what is in that thing? And I'm just intrigued. You've mentioned you've had access. You said things that you've got access to, like you have obtained access to the things that make people live to 257 or whatever they are. Like, how do you get access to these things, and what have you done with them?
Well, for that specific example, I reached out to someone, and that was known to probably have that recipe, and kind of waved me away. It's like, oh, I'm going to give a clue in my next book. And so I just connected with God, and it's like, what should I say to get this? And I just channeled a short message, and instantly totally changed. And he got on a call and gifted me this formula, so it's the same with this clinic that has all these technologies that can scan and heal and perform miracles on your physical and also your emotional system. And it's really just about just deciding, right? When you decide something's possible, even if I was like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I just know that I want it. I want to connect with it. And so when you decide something and then you listen to your intuition, you're going to be guided to miracles.
Do you feel like potentially the limitation for a lot of people is they don't have the conviction and the belief to be able to decide on something? Or what do you think is one of the things that are holding people back?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is just being decisive and taking action. And it's just like a muscle that we get to reconnect with, right? You can do it with small things, right? And just build back trust in yourself by deciding, I'm going to just meditate for 5 minutes there. I'm going to just reach out, send some love to one person every day. And those little steps start to build, just like going to the gym, your muscle of decisiveness and your muscle of intuition. And you need both to really play this game on earth successfully.
Yeah. Would you say you're scared of death?
I used to be scared of death. And now, obviously I want my body to be healthy and I care about it. Yet I know that there's so much beyond that we never actually die. It's just our body dies. And then we shift consciousness.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm not a complete expert, obviously, on everything that happens after death. I'm still on this journey too, but I know from my own experience spiritually, and they have books where they interviewed so many people in hypnosis that have all said the same thing about what happens after you die. So it's quite interesting. And essentially, we basically just leave our body, and based off our level of consciousness and what we're holding on to, there's different levels that we can experience, and we can either reincarnate at a certain time, come back into a new body. And, there's all these stories of kids that 3 or 4 years old, they're like, I was murdered in my past life. And they they tell the name and the place of the exact place. And that's in the history books in a totally different country, like out of nowhere, right? There's a lot of crazy stories that way. So there's a lot of proof of that. And at a certain point, when you become in line, which is basically just dissolving all the constructs and realizing you're one with everything, then you're graduating from this realm.
Wow. And earlier on, you mentioned that you are single at the moment and you would love to kind of have someone in your life. Is there a way that you're manifesting that into your life? Is there a way, or is there things you feel like you need to do to be able to attract that person? Is there anything that you've been changing in your life as of recent to be able to try and make that change in your life?
100%. That's been a challenging journey for me. And I think a lot of it is, the lesson again has just been being fully myself. And I'm really stepping into that now and now that my health feels like it's finally resolved and I'm just kind of fine tuning it, I've been really just on this journey, immersed in that for myself. And feel like I'm preparing myself to open up to a life partner, and it's really exciting and humbling. And it's something I'm still learning myself. And so it's interesting because for me, human connection was very hard my whole life, and it seems a lot better now, but I'm still learning a lot. Yet, even 10 years ago, I had these famous relationship coaches that were fighting, and I was able to just channel the exact information each person needed for them to resolve. But then I could barely, learning eye contact and how to have a friend even beyond even a relationship at that time romantically. So I've always felt like a hypocrite. And, same for business, channeling information for the top founders of the top tech companies, bank corporations, the top people. You've heard a lot of their names, yet I didn't really take a business class. I don't really know a lot of business terminology, but they're asking me for advice. And the reason is it's not from my experience. It's not who I am. I'm just a radio, like we all are, to just tap into that information. And so it's been a journey to really accept that in myself and not judge myself, that I might have the keys for other people, but not myself. And that's why I'm an eternal student and continue to learn each day.
So you feel like it's easy for you to access what other people need, but it's harder for you to access what you need.
Sometimes, at least, for sure. And it's only because my ego, or I'm sometimes attached to a certain answer. But I feel like also we're often not meant to just do it all ourselves. I think that's like the lone wolf. It's like wolves are in packs for a reason. And I think it's beautiful that we're meant to live in communities again and really support each other and share the codes. And right now I'm living with a few people that we all have different keys for each other, which is really beautiful.
Mm. And just on that piece, you said just then that it's quite a challenging area for you, the relationship piece, like finding that life partner has been a challenging area for you to think about and process. What's the main reason that's been challenging?
Well, I think a big part of it was just for my whole life, I never got that information of how to really go deep with someone. And then I became, to survive. I was like, okay, I don't want to get a job and I have this gift. Let me just support thousands of people. And so I got to kind of connect with all these different peoples on some type of deep level. But there's been this part of me that has been scared to really fully be myself and fully just be present and go deeper with someone, because as a child and in different experiences, I was severely abused and punished for being myself. So it's really, even though conceptually I get it all, it's really just completing in my nervous system, in my body, of just really feeling safe to be myself. And from doing that, just allowing in someone also that can handle me being able to see so much, and they just got to be committed to a similar path, and so that we can go on adventures together and grow.
Do you ever have doubts of finding that person?
Sometimes, I'm human, and I know deep down that it's all unfolding, and it's really about me being ready. And when you're ready, the teacher appears, the partner, all of those things. Yeah,
that's really cool. I want to commend you. I feel like, there's a lot of stuff that's probably unknown that you've spoken about today. There's a lot of things that I still don't fully understand. There's probably people listening that don't fully understand, but I think it's really cool to be able to see the side of you and see all the stuff that you're working on. It's just like, it's so inspiring. It just sparks my curiosity and that's why I was sitting down here in the first place. It just sparked my curiosity to want to know more and understand that, like, there's a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different lives. I feel like yours is very unconventional for what we typically hear. I mean, maybe not in your circles, but in a lot of circles, I feel like it is quite unconventional. And I want to commend you just for sharing it all today and diving deep.
I appreciate that, brother, and really inspired by you as well, and just being fully authentic, which I think is the ultimate superpower.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything you want to share or talk about before we wrap up?
Yeah, just reminding everyone that it's just about remembering who you are. You don't have to gain these abilities or fix who you are, but just wake up to the deeper part of who you are. And I'd love to invite you all to our academy, where we train people in this very quickly to unlock their gifts and their abilities and basically learn how to navigate their mind and reality, which I think is the most important part and that we're not taught about in school at all, and be able to navigate life in a new operating system.
Yeah, cool. And how can they find that?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Daniel Raphael 1, or go to my site, dreamporting.com. And we have a bunch of free meditations and classes and free school community where we share a lot of transformative meditations in just an hour that can change your life and teach you how to manifest your dreams.
Yeah, awesome. I'll leave all of that in the show notes in the description so you guys can check it out for themselves, and maybe we even try and get like a discount code or something to give.
Oh, yeah, Griffin.
Griffin?
So just put in Griffin and you'll get a discount on everything. Yeah.
Put in Griffin, GRIFFIN, and check out some of the stuff. I feel like broadening consciousness and being closer to who you truly are is not something that will do anyone any harm. Like, being more clear on who you are is probably the most important thing that we could possibly do. As we said, the authenticity is the superpower. And for me, when I look at all of the most life-changing things in my life, it's bringing me closer towards being who I truly am and having the courage and confidence enough to speak that. And then I think that what comes downstream from that is all of the things that we truly want. I'm grateful for you, and I really appreciate you coming on today.
An honor, brother.
Thank you.
Look forward to more adventures.
Plenty more to come. And if you guys have made it to the end, screenshot this and tag tag Daniel and myself in your social stories, just to make sure, and let us know that you've made it to the end so we can thank you for that. And leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, because it will really help the show grow, helps us keep getting awesome guests just like Daniel back on the show so we can keep on growing together. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We are signing out for this week, and I will see you next week. Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.